let's get going. Today we're going to talk about a few things that we do as agents on behalf of our clients. Some certain mistakes that we do. Pay attention to this because it's very, very important. The things that we do. So let's get going, right? So everybody knows what is the liquidation damages. Can somebody write to us quickly? What is the liquidation damages? Can anybody write what are the liquidation damages is? What is the liquidation damage? Nobody knows? Okay. Basically, liquidation damages is in the event that the buyer default after the removing all the contingencies, there's nothing that stops the buyer from closing and the buyer doesn't close. That means that the seller can hold the EMD, the earnest money deposit, which we call deposit, can hold and keep it. Now, it's not automatically, it is a process, but the seller has a right to the buyer's deposit. That means the liquidation damages. Now, sometimes, and you have to remember that if the damages are higher than the actual deposit, the seller can file a lawsuit and try to claim over that amount. But that amount, it's when it sits in escrow, the seller has a claim against it in the event that the buyer default. Now, what do I mean when there is a liquidation damages and we are not taking that over because we don't do our job? So let's see what it means. If we have a contract, so as you can see, we have a $535,000 and an agent wrote, and they put a $10,000 deposit. Now, if this is an owner-occupied purchase of a 1 to 4 units, it means that the seller can hold up to 3% earnest money deposit. 3%, no more. And I'll show you later in the contract what does it say. So what does it mean? It means that if the buyer at this point default on the contract, it means that the seller can hold the deposit. Now, what do we have in this case? We have a $535,000 and there is a deposit of $10,000. We, as listing agent, what do we need to do? What kind of a counter do we should do when we have a situation like that? When we have it's owner-occupied purchase of a 1 to 4 units. What do we need to do? Anybody can write it as for us. Anybody can write us. Guys, everybody, what's going on here? Are we up? Oh, well, okay. You know what? We have a little bit of people here that didn't wake up. Wow, I guess I'm the only one who's up early today. So we have to counter because right now we have $10,000, which is less than 3%. Less than 3%. We have to counter, and I'll show you in a minute. We have to counter that the earnest money deposit will be at least 3%. Now, I want to teach you something that you probably don't know. When it's an investor, okay, investor is buying the property, the earnest money deposit can be any amount. Did you get that? The earnest money deposit can be any amount. Okay? So what does it mean? It means that if you want to be strong and you have multiple offers, you can ask, let's say, earnest money deposit to be 10% of the final purchase price. It's perfectly legal. And if in the event that the buyer is defaulting eventually, even though it's an investor, the seller can hold that amount. Everybody got what I just said. Non-owner occupied can be any amount and not necessarily a cap of the 3%. Everybody got what I just said. Thank you, Charlene. So let's take a look. Where is it in the contract when in the event that you want to explain our client? So first of all, if you see here, when the property is a dwelling no more than 4 units, and the buyer intend to occupy it, we cannot charge. It cannot be more than 3%. You see, it's over here in the liquidation damages clause on number 21. Which, by the way, this 21 and 22 are the only places in the contract that the initials are in the middle of the page. You know, all of us that wrote the contract, we saw that there is only one page that there are initials in it. Why is that? Because this is a serious clause, which talk about what's the event of everybody start going to arbitrations and courts. So this is something that we have to be aware. Now, if the buyer does not intend to occupy it, and it's more than 4 units, but it can be buyer, owner occupied, and 1 unit, you can ask for any earnest money deposit. It can be even 100%. Okay, so if you have a situation, and I think that Leo and Armando, I don't know if they are here. Armando is not here, surprisingly enough. They just in ESCO, and it was a probate, and there was a lot of investors trying to get this property. They said, you know what, 10%, that's the EMD. So that's a little bit securing your seller's position. Don't be shy on that. So what do we do as the listing side? Here's our counter, seller counter offer. It can be also a multiple, and we have here, yeah. So we counter the price. You see. Now, what I want you to do is do not write EMD to be and the amount. Don't write the amount. And I see a lot of agents do that. Don't write the amount, because if this is a negotiation, it's something live. You know, it goes back and forward, back and forward. So write down exactly this language. EMD to be 3% of the agreed purchase price, which means that if we have back and forward counter offers, this clause, this number 2 clause, will take it perpetually until the end of the contract. Okay, everybody got that? Everybody got that? Okay, wonderful. Charlene and Robin are awake. Very good. I know that also you are awake early, so that's not surprising. Okay, let's move on to another clause. Not filling in the loan details on the RPA. This is important, because sometimes we put and I'll show you when we do that on the first page of the contract, but we have a place to put the loan information. What type of a loan? Now remember, if we don't check the boxes, and again I'll show you in a minute. If we don't check the box of either VA or FHA, which is the most common one after the conventional, and that means that the loan is conventional. I have a lot of agents say, where I have to check the box on conventional? If you're asking this question, it means that you didn't read the contract, which it means that you didn't read the contract, because the contract, and I'll show you, says that the loan is conventional unless. Now think about that. Think about that your intention to take an FHA loan, but you didn't check that box. You didn't check that box. Here it is. So you can see here, the loan is conventional financing. So if we didn't check FHA and we submit the offer, and the offer was accepted, and you're going to a FHA loan, if you're not getting the loan, okay, you would have difficult time later to come and say, I'm sorry, we have to get out of ESCO because we didn't get the loan. Okay, everybody understood what I just said. Okay, it's very important. If you don't give the exact details on the loan and you're going with another loan, that's fine, but it's not going to be fine if you don't close, because if you're not going to close, that means that you are in a breach of contract, because that's not what they agreed. The same thing applies, and we had a situation with one of the agents that is on in the chat here. Let's say that you're coming and say 20% down, okay? Then nobody tells the seller or the seller side that you're going on a 10% down. So the seller is under the impression that's going to be a 20% down and the loan looks good. The buyer cannot get the loan for 10%. They say, we're not going, there's no way, we don't have a loan approval. The seller, even though the loan contingencies were not removed, pay attention to what I just told you. Even though loan contingencies were not removed, the seller can hold the buyers liable for a breach of contract and can go after the liquidation damages. Because the original contract was something else than what the buyer eventually attempted to achieve. Everybody understood what I just said? Everybody understood what I just said? Of course. Okay, excellent. So let's get on another thing in the loan information. Also, we have a situation that we putting the loan, what's the interest rate and so on and so on. Okay, so what's the interest and so on? Let me show you. Oops, where it is. Sorry. Okay, this is a place that we're putting the loan, what's the interest rate, and here's the points. So usually, I mean, most of the transactions are what do you call residential zones, and usually they're without the points. However, it's very, very important to write this, and I call it sometimes escape clause. What does it mean? That if the interest rate, for example, today is a 4.25, you want to put it or 4 and 2/8, which is a little bit of more than 4.25. You put it a little bit below that interest rate. And what does it mean? If eventually the buyer is not able to obtain a loan on the amount here, which is the interest will be higher, that's a possibility for the buyer to escape from the contract and will not be held liable for breach of contract. Okay, so that's it. Now, on the other side, the listing agent, when they see that number, they need to counter. Okay, you have to counter. You cannot leave it like that. You have to counter by putting something. Okay, you have to counter by putting something, and something says that prevailing interest rate in the market, prevailing interest rate. You have to do it. Now, best interest rate, it's not good enough. So put prevailing interest rate, or put a thing that the interest rate is irrelevant to the loan condition. Okay, that's the listing side. Everybody understood what I just said? Good. Okay, let's move on to another item that we all make mistakes. Not revoking the outstanding counteroffer when seller accept another offer. So let's talk about the scenario. Okay, we send a counteroffer, not seller multiple counteroffer. So we sell a seller counteroffer to the buyer. Let's say just one item. Purchase price to be $565. Then, in a natural course of business, it goes to the buyer. The buyer signs it, accepts it. It goes back to the seller. We have a contract. Okay, we have a contract. At that moment, we have a contract. That's it. Okay. Contrary to seller multiple counteroffer, that the seller needs to sign again that buyer's acceptance. So the moment we receive it from the buyer, we have a contract. Now, what happened? We sent the counter. The seller sent the counter at 8 o'clock in the evening, Friday. They sent a counter 565. At 9 o'clock, a perfect, full, clean offer came in at 585. Okay. Now the seller is in dilemma. What do? We have a 565, we send it out. The moment the buyer signs and send it back to the seller, we have a binding contract. So the seller is very tempted to accept the other offer, but they are in a conflict. There is a way to get out of it, okay? There is a way to get out of it. And the way to get out of it, it's very, very simple, and I'll show you. First of all, if this is the seller counter offer, I'm showing it to you, right? Look at this last clause over here, okay? And it says you have expiration. However, and I'll read it to you over here, okay? It says this seller counter offer shall be deemed revoked, okay? Shall be deemed revoked, or number C, if seller accepts another offer prior to buyer's acceptance of this counter offer. Now, why I'm saying that, and it's important, and I'm going to talk about both sides. So first of all, the first side is the buyer. The buyer side, when you get the seller counter offer, guys, when you're representing the buyer, don't go to sleep. Please don't fall asleep on your post, okay? Just go, get the buyer to sign it, accept it, and send it right away to the listing agent. The moment you send it right away to the listing agent, you have a binding contract. Because what's going to happen, as it's possible, and we've been in this situation, the seller received another offer and they accepted it. Now, let's say now we jump into the seller side, okay? We are the listing agent and we're getting another offer. And we have the first counter offer is out for signature by the buyer. What do we do? What do we do? Okay? What do we do? We have to revoke that. So first of all, we calling the other side, we calling the other agent or texting them and say, listen, we have to revoke that offer. We have to withdraw that offer. And I'm sending you a document. And the document I'm sending you, it's withdrawal of offer. Okay, is right now what basically it says is that seller is withdrawing and revoke the offer that was sent, or the counter offer that was sent so and so, and we already told you that it's been revoked. That moment, it's out. That buyer is out. They have no say, even though they send out the acceptance, it's not valid anymore. You have too much echo? Hold on. I'll open the door here. Okay. Much better now, Ricky? Is it better? Okay, wonderful. So this is another thing, and I want you to be aware of this technique so you can protect your seller on one side and protect your buyer on the other side. When you get that, when you represent the buyer, when you get that counter, get it executed. Don't fall asleep. Okay. Let's move on. I have 10 minutes. Okay. Another thing I see. Okay, removal of contingencies with the request for repair or the reply on the request for repair, the RR and the RRRR. So what do we have? Let's see the scenario. We have a buyer sending in a request for repair. Okay, they're sending in a request for repair, and here's the stuff: repair the entrance gate. Okay, let's say just for this purpose, simple. Now, what the seller can do? The seller have few options, right? The seller can agree. The seller, which is here, the seller cannot agree, and the seller can respond with the RRRR. For these purposes, let's talk that the seller agreed to fix the gate. Now, and this is very important, guys, for those of you who are the listing agent. By the way, Mitzi, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to go? You were supposed to fly, no? When are you going? Sunday. Okay, thank you for joining us. The seller says, okay, I agree. And the seller sends that form. But this is where the mistakes here. Because if you can see here, okay, the seller accept that, okay? But the seller, it says here, okay, buyer remove these contingencies, okay, in this form, okay? Buyer remove these contingencies, or buyer remove physical inspection contingencies. Now, where is the mistake? The mistake here is that we're sending the RR signed and accepted by the seller, but we're not doing this. We're not attaching the contingency removal form. We're not attaching that. And that's a problem, because what do you want? You want the buyer to do this for you? No. You as the seller and the seller agent, the listing agent, you have to take leadership on the transaction, which means that you have to send this. Don't leave this floating around, because you're going to miss that piece of document. And you're not going to have that contingency removal. Now, when we talk about contingency removal, regardless if it's connected to the RR or what, and by the way, this contingency removal, as you can see, it's not part of the RPA, it's part of the RR. Okay, so we're connecting the RR to the CR1. Okay, pay attention, it's not part of the RPA, it's part of the RR or the RRRR. Now, I personally, when I'm representing the seller, I don't like to check boxes, okay, if I don't have to. You see over here, what I like to do, it says all buyers contingency except. So if, for example, with physical contingencies, and everybody is thinking about, when you say physical contingencies, oh, is the inspection report. No, it's not only the inspection report or the title report. There's other things as well. So what I like to do is do section B, everything except loan and appraisal. So it means that everything else, the title, disclosures, everything else are out. So we don't have anything anymore to argue. Everybody agree and understand what I just said? Yes, Charlene, of course. Robin? Okay, very good. Excellent. So let's move on to another mistake. This is major, okay? Now, why it's major? Because the TDS, the Transfer Disclosure Statement, and the SPQ, which is a seller property questionnaire, are most probably covering 95% of the legal claims after close of escrow. They are major. So what do we have? What do we have? We have the TDS and SPQ. So what do we have, for example? This is just a fraction of it. I'm not showing everything, but for example, there is talk about structure. So let's imagine that the seller wants to do yes over here. Now, it could be that the seller clicked yes because of mistake, okay? Or they click yes because they didn't know, or whatever they clicked yes. But click yes here without having explanations over here might be a problem, okay? It will be a problem, and it's going to be a problem because when this thing will go to a lawsuit, and there's going to be, okay, what's written on these disclosures, that's going to be a problem, like the seller indicates something and wanted to hide it. Now, the argument for the seller that the buyer saw it and didn't say anything doesn't hold that much in the court of law. So you, as the listing agent, okay, is a conspirator for the seller not disclosing the true fact, because you signing this on the third page. You signing this. Now, guys, don't put your signature in a place that you're not sure. Okay, so you have to go. Don't be a paper pusher. You gotta go and read these documents. You got to read the disclosures. You have to see that everything is okay over there. Don't let anybody else do this for you. This is a job in escrow that only you can do it. Okay? Some other people, your TC might see it, but your signature is there. So before you put that signature, even if that signature is DocuSign, you got to make sure that you properly fill this up. Okay, let's go for another one. I'm running out of time. So let's say we have on the MLS, a property is listed on the MLS, and it says over there that the uh, let's say the chandelier, the Louis XIV chandelier is being part of this purchase, okay? And it says that. And it could be that your buyer, that was the reason he fell in love in this property, and they want to go for that chandelier. You know what? That chandelier is not a good idea because it's a fixture. Um, it's a fixture, but you know what? I'll talk about that. But let's say that it says about the garden set. Okay, it's part of the purchase agreement. If you, as the buyer agent, will not put here, okay, the personal properties like the garden set, the seller is not obligated to write it to leave it. Okay, they might change their mind and say, you know what, we found a buyer, pays us $500. Why are we going to leave it to the seller, to the buyer? Okay, so don't assume that because it's on the MLS, it's going to be part of the agreement. No, it's not. You have to go and emphasize it over here. The same thing applies to the Louis XIV chandelier. If you see something which is unique, put it there. Put it over here. Put it here, says Louis XIV chandelier on the living room. Because the seller might take that Louis XIV and change it to Louis XVII, which completely different value. Okay, so you want to make sure that certain things stay, which are important to your buyer, put it in the contract. Everybody got that? Everybody got that? Yes? Wonderful. We're doing great. So let's go for the last one. Last one quickly. If we advertise square footage without citing the source. So usually, how do we know square footage? We go to the property profile and we see square footage structures. We get it. Okay. Now we have a situation. The seller tells us, listen, guys, it's not 1661 because it goes automatically when we put on the MLS. It goes automatically from the county assessor straight to the MLS. Okay, and it's go here. Now we want to change that because the seller says that he added a little bit more. So we have, instead of 1661, we have 1800. Okay, we have 1800, right? Now our job is to make sure that we say, who is the one that gave us the 1800? If we're not going to put that, we are ourselves in problem because we didn't disclose properly. And this can go after us, doesn't go after the seller because the seller has no indication on the MLS. So if somebody tells you it's 1800, put something other than the assessor. Put owner, okay? Put estimated, put builder, put seller, put anything else. Just change the assessor. Everybody understand? Okay, last item. Okay, and I've seen that. So we have a seller multiple counter offer, and people says purchase price to be highest and best. Okay, so everybody else sending higher and best. Now this higher and best, remember, seller multiple counter offer, we don't have. It's not accepted until the seller accepts the acceptance. I see agents writing counter offer, seller counter offer with purchase price to be highest and best. What does it mean? Because think about that. Purchase price to be highest and best. This buyer takes the form and accepted it and send it over. What does it mean? It means that we have a binding agreement on the original purchase price because that's the best and highest. And the seller is obligated under this agreement because you cannot, on a seller counter offer, put highest and best. You can do it only on a seller multiple counter offer. Questions on this? What did I just say? Question on that? I see a few people writing. Okay, guys, quickly. Okay. Only highest and best on multiple counter offer. Yes, for sure. Because on a counter offer, you have to write a number. You have to write a number. Okay, guys, quickly. Sell counter offer is a contract. Yes, it's a contract the moment the buyer signs it, accepts it. Exactly. Okay, guys. So that's it for today. Remember, knowledge is power, guys. Knowledge is power. If you have the knowledge, you might have the upper end um, every time you are out there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, productive day, and go get somebody, list something. Take care.